Hey everybody, how's it going? It's me, Professor Simons. I'm here with my dog because she won't leave the couch. She just won't. What are you gonna do? Let's talk briefly about critical analyses and the paper you've got on Friday, because on Friday you've got a critical analysis to write for this class. It's all about protest songs. So find a song that you think is a protest song and then write 2 pages where you argue to me, this is why it's a protest song. This, and this. That proves to me this song is actually protesting something. But we haven't really talked about critical analyses yet, so let's talk about it now. A critical analysis is just a paper, like any other paper. It's a persuasive argument. But your thesis, your arguments, and your examples pretty much always come from some outside text. So you find a text, you make a thesis about it, and then you argue that thesis. And we've actually already done one in class, when we talked about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So that was the outside text, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and our thesis was, Willy Wonka is actually a horror movie. And we had evidence from the text itself, from the movie itself. We said, this scene proves it, this scene proves it, this thing proves it, etc. And that's really all a critical analysis is. You take some text, a movie, a photograph, a piece of art, a poem, a lab report, an essay, an article, a book, whatever, and you make some thesis about that work. Make sense? That would be why your 3 readings for Monday were all pieces of what I would call art. You had a short story and 2 pieces of physical art. So let's talk about them. So let's start by talking about the short story Bullet in the Brain. Bullet in the Brain is one of my favorite short stories. We've got our main character is Anders. Anders is our protagonist, and he is, this is the technical term for him, an asshole. He's mean, he's in a bad mood. The very first line is that he's in a murderous rage, so he's already angry. He's funny, I think, but he's sarcastic and he's mean-spirited. He's certainly not a hero. Anders, the very first time we see him, he's at this bank. The bank has a huge long line. One of the bank tellers closes her line, making the line even longer, I suppose, or making the wait even longer. And the woman in front of Anders says, like, ugh, can you believe this? And even though Anders agrees with that lady in front of him, he still has to be mean-spirited and has to say, oh yeah, if they're not bombing your ancestral homeland or chopping off the wrong leg, they're closing their bank line, lady. So he's an asshole. He's mean. He's a bad guy. And we see him get shot for it. He gets shot in the head. The title's Bullet in the Brain, so spoiler alert. He's shot because he can't stop laughing at these bank robbers who show up and all the cliche things they do. And then the second half of the story is all the things that happened to Anders that changed him from a really nice kid with self-control, like in the baseball field. He has self-control, he appreciates things, but then life happens to him. He has a daughter, he describes her as a sullen professor of economics, so in some ways he's kind of displeased with her. He has previous loves that he stopped loving for one reason or another. He had friends in college who started writing books, and then he started having to critique them and got angrier and angrier. Then he had moments like when he visits his mom on her deathbed and she says, I wish I stabbed your father. These are the things that sort of ground him down until he's this really angry, bitter person. And that takes us to the bank where he gets shot. So if we want to write a critical analysis of the story Bullet in the Brain, the first thing we need is a thesis. And here's the thesis I want to use. Anders doesn't want to die, he just can't control himself. That's our thesis. It's not proven in the story, but that's what I think happens. He just cannot stop himself from laughing. He physically cannot hold it in. Now we gotta prove it. Proof number 1. One of the last things he says before he's shot is he says, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. To me, that is him apologizing and saying, I'm sorry, please don't do this. I cannot hold myself back. It's almost involuntary. I'm so sorry. The way a person with, like, Tourette's or some other type of disorder might apologize for these tics that cannot be controlled or held back in this moment. That's an argument. Another argument could be the last memory itself. He had all of these moments in his life. His daughter, previous marriages, a car crash, he had graduating college. But he doesn't remember those. The thing he does remember, though, is when he was younger, when he could hold himself back from speaking off the cuff and maybe being misunderstood. He remembers when he was younger and he appreciated something. He remembers when he was younger and he loved language. Maybe that is Anders saying, I wish I could go back here. I wish I could go back to the moment where I could control myself. Let's do one more. At one moment in the story, when the robber has a gun up to Anders' head, he covers his mouth. I'm going to use that and say that's evidence that says he can't stop himself. The only way he has to hold in his laughter is to literally cover his face. Otherwise, why else is he doing it? He's doing it because that's his only attempt at stopping himself. But he knows he can't. So that's what a critical analysis is. You have a text, you have a thesis, and then your thesis just takes arguments and takes evidence from that text until you've proven your point. Okay, let's do another example of a critical analysis. First, we need a text, and we're going to use Follow Your Dreams, a very famous piece of street art. It was made by Banksy. It says Follow Your Dreams, and then over top of it is a big thing that says Cancelled, and then we've got a stenciled man with a brush and a bucket and some rolled paper. Now that we've got our text, the next thing we need is a thesis. And I'm going to make the thesis really simple here, which is, in the work Follow Your Dreams, the colors represent the meaning of the piece itself. So basically, all we're looking at is the colors right now. So let's start with the red canceled sticker. Why is it red? What does that represent? Well, let's go really simple. Red means stop. We learned that the day we get our driver's license. Red means to literally stop. Not only that, but it's also bright, and it's corporate, and it's loud on this white wall. Canceled. Follow your dreams, not anymore. So it's got this really bright, vibrant thing that literally represents stopping something in its tracks. That color makes sense for the topic of the piece itself. Next, let's look at the color of Follow Your Dreams. On the PDF I sent you, it might look really gray, but I would say it's actually a very, very dull green. Why is it a dull green? Because green means go. It's the exact opposite. And why is it sort of dull? Because it's supposed to maybe feel weathered. Maybe it's supposed to feel like it's been on the wall for a long time. Follow Your Dreams has been this thing that everyone has wanted to do, but now it's faded, it's weathered, it's worn out, and now it's sort of dull green. It's a simple argument. It's not a big elaborate critical analysis, but in those two arguments, did we prove that the colors represent something important in the piece of art? I think we did. And last, let's talk about Minotaur dying in the arena. I love this sketch. It's a Pablo Picasso sketch, but I'm going to say this. If you're trying to make a critical analysis about this sketch, it might be kind of hard. There's not a lot going on. It's black and white, it's drawn really minimalist, it's just a Minotaur dying in the arena. It's kind of hard to say exactly what Picasso was trying to do. But this is a time when doing outside research might help us a little bit making a critical analysis. Here's some outside research about this. Picasso drew this much later in his life. I think he was in his 70s at the time he drew this. Picasso, as you may know, was really, really famous and really rich and really highly acclaimed, but that was when he was younger. By the time he did this in his 70s, the art world wasn't paying that much attention to him anymore. He was kind of washed up, he wasn't making as much money, critics weren't loving his work. So that's something to think about. We can also talk about his love life. Picasso was married a few times and he had a lot of mistresses when he was younger. But by the time he drew this in his 70s, his wife had left him, his mistresses had all gone away, partially because he lost his fame and partially because he was older. He was, in just about every way, washed up. Okay, and now that we know all of that about Picasso, maybe we can use that to make a critical analysis. Let's use the thesis, the Minotaur actually represents Picasso himself. So that's the thesis we're working with. The Minotaur in this sketch is supposed to be Picasso. How do we prove it? First, Picasso made himself in this to be kind of a beast. He's a wounded animal. And that fits exactly what we know about Picasso's later life. He felt like a monster. He wasn't loved by women. He wasn't loved by art critics. He felt like this older, much more deformed and grotesque version of himself. So in the sketch, what does he do? He makes himself a literal monster. And let's try another way to prove it. We can prove it by looking at the crowd around the Minotaur. The crowd are 6 people, and all 6 of them seem to be women, and basically all of them are looking at this monster with disdain and anger. How does that fit Picasso's life? He had mistreated women, he had lost the loves of his life, and by the time he's in his 70s sketching this, he's basically alone. That fits pretty well with his real life and the painting. And let's do one last argument. Let's talk about the Minotaur himself. The Minotaur, as you can tell from the title and his general posture looking up at the sky with a knife near him, is dying. What does that say about Picasso? Well, this is grim, but he was later in his life. He was facing death, and I think that might be another representation of who he was in this moment. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for watching. Remember, on Friday, you've got the first draft of the Critical Analysis, the protest song essay. Make sure you get that to me. 2 pages, double-spaced, just like all the rest of them. Let me know if you have any questions, but if not, I'll see you later. Bye.